Good morning. Today we're just finishing up a pretty hectic last week. We had our couples retreat Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and a great time together. And I was teaching also last week at Pacific Baptist Bible College with Pastor Myers and Brother Joseph Esposito. Just a great place. We've got I think 6 of our young people, maybe 7, I don't know. I'm terrible with numbers. We've got a handful of our young people there in their school. And they're growing, and they're excited about doing the work of God. And so anyway, busy last week, and then back for Sunday, and a good day yesterday with people saved and baptized. And God's just been awfully good to us. Now we're in Stewardship Month, and I'm going to be in Luke chapter 12 in just a minute, if you'd like to look at a verse or two. But just thinking of stewardship, taking good care of what God has given you. So I'm going to take just a moment and mention a illustration or two, because I don't want to have all of church be about stewardship 3 times a week. You've got our church members have needs, and the church should be a place of comfort. You know, the prophet said, "Comfort." God said to the preachers of the Old Testament message, "Comfort ye, comfort my people." And so church needs to be some comfort. It needs to be, according to Paul's writing to Timothy, to reprove. There should be reproof, and there should be some exhortation, some encouragement. And then there should be doctrine, and we need all those things from the pulpit. And so I can't just overkill on stewardship. But I do want to take a moment and encourage you to consider stewardship. For instance, if I die tonight, there's how about a combination to a safe? How about where is do we have a living trust? Where is it? Who's the attorney who's put it together for us? And this is our arrangement, is that he would take responsibility for getting the trust into the hands of whoever the executor is, and there's some relation. Well, who is he? Where's his phone number? How about the title to our vehicles? Where are those titles? And in whose name are they? And what about bills? Most of our bills are maybe like you, they're automatic withdrawal, and every month or every quarter a bill is paid. Well, if that needs to be changed, where's the passwords for that account? And what's the email that the accounts are tied to? Our bank account. There's a bank account. There's a savings account, and we have a credit card. And I think a lot of people don't have any business having a credit card. And there were probably some years when I shouldn't have had, and I did. But in mercy, God has helped us over the years, and for some time now, everything's been paid off, and no credit card debt. So now I use one, but it's every month or even a couple times a month. I pay it all off. But where are the records for that, and the passwords, and where are the accounts, and are there things in other banks? For a while, just to keep me rigid, I had to put my tax money, put it away. I put it in a different bank. I didn't want it anywhere near the money that I was spending. And so what's that? Where? And for some of you, I don't have any retirement. I don't have any pension. I don't have any investments as far as money that's put aside in stock market or whatever. I don't have any of that, and I don't think it's wrong. I've just lived too tight day to day to have that, or I'm not a good enough steward. I don't know what you want to say, but whatever. But you that have 401ks, you have stocks, you have maybe you have an annuity or whatever. Where's the records for all that? And at the moment of someone's death, the whole world emotionally is upside down. And it's not fair in the midst of that deep emotional time to have them not know what's going on. And you might say, well, I told them once. Well, do they remember? And is there an easy access to whatever it is that they should have? And it's just it's stewardship in this sense of be lightening the load when the time comes. And some of you, your spouse is already gone. In a couple of weeks, I'm doing the service for Richard Newhouse, who'd been in our church for some time. When his wife died, he needed his discharge papers to have her buried at the National Cemetery. And he couldn't find his discharge papers. Those are, if you've been in the military, those papers need to be, you might say, well, they've got it somewhere. Yeah, they do, but they don't care. You got to have it. And it was a real answered prayer. Richard came to us, and he'd been looking and looking and looking, and finally he just said, I just prayed. And it's like God said, in that closet or in that shed, in that box, and there the papers were. Well, he just passed away. Okay, so now he found the papers for his wife's burial. Where did he put them? And we already have a date for his burial next to his wife, or I'm assuming next to his wife, but at the same cemetery at least, because I'm going to be doing the service. Where's that paper for his kids, his adult kids that are wherever? And, in some of your case, your kids live out of town. Where's the paperwork? Who's going to take care of this? And I would just encourage you, walk through what you have and make sure somebody knows where things are. And let's be good stewards. And let's not bring a bunch of weight and grief on our kids or our spouse or whoever it might be. I would encourage you to prayerfully think through. And as you get older, like for us, our kids are all married now. They have their own lives. We need to get back to the person who's put our trust together, and we need to rework a few things because now the kids are grown. We did it when we had kids at home. Well, that all needs change now. And you need to think through. And I think you should prayerfully think through. God, what do you want done with this? Don't just say, well, I'm just going to divide it up, but this. Well, maybe God's got a plan. And it's just between you and God. I would encourage you to put God in your trust. I would encourage you to, figure out, and probably most of you are smarter with money than me, but I would encourage you, if you have 3 kids, divide your estate up by 4. That would be one way. God gets 1/4, and the other kids all get 1/4. And that's, giving God the same thing as your children. I don't know, is that good, bad, whatever? Totally between you and God. You might give it to a ministry or to a mission organization or to a building project or whatever it might be, but something for God. I'd encourage you, keep God until the day you die, until beyond your death. Your resources are being stewarded for God's glory. One of the great things about dividing your estate between, and again, whether you give your stuff to your kids is totally up to you. I know people who said, the kids aren't living for God, and I'm going to give them something, but I'm not giving them big chunks of my estate because they don't have any heart for God. Why would I give them? And of course, then you got a husband and a wife, and sometimes the wife is more tender. No, we want the kids to have, I don't want to be dead and have the kids mad at me that they didn't get anything or they didn't get as much. And, I think I'm in heaven. I don't know. Am I going to care that the kids are mad at me? I don't know those things. But that's all between you and God. And I do think it should be between you and your spouse. For my wife and I, everything we have is ours. It's not mine. I drive the truck most of the time. My wife drives the car most of the time. But the car is ours and the truck is ours. The truck isn't mine and the car hers. I don't say I'll take my truck. And I might, if I'm with staff or something, I'll say, hey, let's take my truck. But the truck is ours. Both names on the title. If I drop dead, it belongs to her just as much. And we don't have any dividing like that. Now, she's got her own bank account because we found it was good. All the bills come out of this account, and then this account is hers, so she can spend that money any way she wants. And she doesn't, we're not worried about it coming that's set aside for bills or whatever it might be. And I've heard people say, marriage people say, oh, no, nothing separate. But I think it's good business to me that I have my money, my wife's got her money, and then we've got this money that is set aside for bills, and then this money set aside for savings. We've got a savings account, and it's nothing huge, but at least there's some money. At least there's something in it that makes my wife real happy. So think through your stuff, and let's be good stewards. All right, off that. Let me quickly throw a thought out. In Luke chapter 12. By the way, if you don't know what to do, you can shoot me a text, give me a call. There are people in the church that I would recommend you talk to that are smart about these things. And there are people who are smart. They know how to not give away to the IRS or to whoever money. They know how to put money here, and here, and it's smart. I don't know any of that stuff. I am 100% ministry, and I'm not an expert at hunting or fishing or fighting or world economy or immigration. I'm not. Look, I've got one. I am. The Bible says, "Give thyself wholly to these things." That's what Paul told Timothy, and so I am wholly in. And I would love to be so smart I could be wholly into some other things, but I'm just not that sharp. And so I'm going to try and do well what I do for God, and the rest I'm just going to ask for mercy and thank God in His mercy we've managed to at least stay above board with everything, and it's all been mercy. I can tell you that much. So, but get advice. Luke chapter 12. There's a story. A guy came to Jesus and brought up money, and he said in verse 13, "Master, speak to my brother that he divide the inheritance with me." And he said to him, "Man, who made me a judge or divider over you?" And instead of helping him to figure out how to divide the inheritance, he said, "Beware of covetousness. You be careful. Covetousness will ruin you." And very sober answer. A man's life consisteth not in the abundance of things which he possesses, verse 15 says. But then he spoke a parable. And I'm in verse 16 of Luke 12. He spake a parable unto them, saying, The ground of a certain rich man brought forth plentifully, and he thought within himself, saying, What shall I do? Notice all the I's and me's. What shall I do, because I have no room where to bestow my fruits? And he said, Thus will I do. I will pull down my barns, and will build greater, and there will I bestow all my fruits and my goods. And I will say to my soul, I've been doing fives, I think that's 11, but I'm not sure. I will say to my soul, take thine ease, for thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry. I think that's 12 times he said I or my or mine. 12 times. It's all about him. And then I want you to notice what Jesus said, the response. But God said to him, Thou fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee. Then whose shall those things be which thou hast provided? So is he that layeth up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. Rich toward God. Laying up treasure for yourself and not rich toward God. Sounds to me like being rich toward God is more important than laying up treasure for yourself. And I don't care how many investments and how many pension plans and how much money put away, and you got gold and silver and stocks and bonds and all this. Now your heirs are happy to find out you've got some put away, but you're not going to be happy about it, not unless you're rich toward God. And God says you're a fool. God says you store up wealth and riches and lots of money and lots of provision. And if you don't lay up treasure with God, you're a fool. You're just, and some people say, the Bible says, don't call anybody a fool. Well, God did right there, and God's usually right in what he does. There's some fools in this world, and God wanted that guy to know, you're a fool to do this. You are a fool to die and leave all this behind. I like that verse in Ecclesiastes where he says you have all this wealth and you die, and who knows who you're going to leave it to, whether he be wise or a fool. And there are plenty of people that leave their estate to a fool. And I'm just not sure that we ought to leave our estate to a fool. Decide to be rich toward God. Let me read that last verse again. Verse 21, so is he that layeth up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. And the whole text, there's a lot more talking about this as well. But I just want to encourage you, be rich toward God. Be rich toward God. Just like you would put money away so that when you retire, you've got money to retire on. Well, I plan on retiring. I plan on retiring in a place where there's golden streets and golden mansions and the river of life and a fruit tree that bears 12 different kinds of fruit. I plan on retiring a place in a city 1,600 miles square. I plan on retiring a place and you know what? But just because we're saved and we're all going to the same heaven doesn't mean that we're all equal, because he said there are people who have laid up treasure for themselves, but they're not rich toward God. And I think about some of these pastors in India and in the Middle East where the Bible is outlawed and where preaching is outlawed, And I've read stories of pastors who ride their bicycle to 5 different churches with their wife in the back of the bicycle, and they preach here, then they preach here, and they preach here and preach here. I think, I wonder how rich that guy's going to be compared to me. I'm very comfortable, 2 cars and a beautiful house and a salary and a nice office and all these things. And we don't want to get comparing ourselves. The guy who dies a martyr's death because he stood for Christ. The people in places that it's like one pastor in China, this has probably been 25 years ago, but I heard him talk about pastoring in China, that there's a lot of pastors in China. He said, when you choose to be a pastor in China, you assume you're going to spend, I think he said 9 was the number, but he said 9 years in jail. Now, whatever number he said, 9, 11, 12, whatever, it doesn't matter, but he said, you're going to spend 12 years or 9 years in prison. You'll go in for a couple of years and get out, and you keep pastoring. You'll go in for a few years and get out, and in the course of your ministry lifetime, you will be in prison this number of years. Well, those are good people. You think the guy who gets saved goes to church once a quarter, puts a quarter in the offering plate when he's there 3 or 4 times a year, maybe goes to church Christmas and Easter, and never shares a gospel tract, never witnessed anybody, never supports a missionary, never drives a bus, teaches Sunday school class. You think he's going to have the same life in heaven that this pastor in China is going to have, who spent 9 years of his life in prison for the gospel's sake? No, it's not going to happen. God says right here, there are some people who are rich toward God. And I don't understand all of it. I've read too much. Remember the parable where he said, you be ruler over 5 cities and you over 10 cities, and then he chews the other guy out for not doing anything. And there's differences here. The Corinthians, Paul to the Corinthian church said, your works will be tried by fire, and if your works burn up, you suffer loss. Nevertheless, you'll be saved, yet so is by fire. But if your works abide, gold, silver, precious stones, you're going to receive a reward. So some people are going to get to heaven with rewards. Some people are going to get to heaven just by the hair of their chin. And again, I'm not saying I understand it all. I just know this. God says, be rich toward God. Be rich toward God. And you may have a month left or a year left or 50 years left of your life, but could I encourage you to be a good steward of what God has given you? A good steward. And take what God has given you and make sure that some of your time and your talent and your treasure is used for God. Because when your life ends, you want to be rich toward God.